recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thank you for today. I think I greatly appreciate your candor. I know it's highly unusual to go into this level of detail during an active investigation, and I know it's a special and unique circumstance given the nature of what happened that day. I'll ask my colleagues that we not try and take advantage of this in other circumstances. I think we need to be careful about pressuring our investigators, to disclose information in the middle of an investigation in a casual or routine way. But thank you for what you've done here today. I do want to mention this too. Like Congressman Correa, I went up to Butler with Homeland Security Committee, and had a chance to meet with a number of the people there, including people who were there at the rally. And several of them were elected officials. In fact, one of them that spoke with me a lot was sitting directly behind Mr. Trump when he was shot, and she had video that she'd taken, and she'd love to share it with you all. But she mentioned a couple of things, too, that I hope you all will have a chance to have conversations about. And I know some of it's going to be in the Secret Service lane, some's going to be in the FBI lane. But one of the things she talked about was the fact that the day before the shooting, she and other officials in the town and people who just wanted to prepare the stage showed up and started working on putting the bunting up and decorating it. But the point she noted was that none of them had been vetted. There was nobody there to keep an eye on them and make sure that everything that was being done was appropriate. And she actually sort of thought in the context of hearing that a gun was found, or a gun was perhaps hidden at the site before the shooter was able to get it and use it. I don't know those details, but those are some of the things that came up that day. She also mentioned that there was sort of the outer perimeter. So you had a perimeter around the stage that the Secret Service had set up. Beyond that, you had a field, and then you had the building where the company was, and the shooter got on the roof. Apparently, there was a sort of a second level of a perimeter there that wasn't particularly restricted from an access standpoint, as with the street that was just beyond that. So she raised, and another elected official raised as well, issues about security that may actually kind of get into what you're talking about, whether the ladder was there, how the guy got on the roof. There are all sorts of issues with respect to that. And there was a lot of people, as you said, that had videotape. I talked to 3 that were showing me videos while I was standing out there in the grounds. But I had a couple of questions to ask of you briefly. Apparently, there was no Secret Service recordation of communications during that day. There's no radio runs, we call them, but there's no tapes. Do you know if there are any recorded conversations among law enforcement from that day?
I don't know the details of that. I believe there may be some, but I don't have in front of me exactly what we've seen or heard.
Okay. And then with respect to email communications, there were a lot of issues about, because my personal view, having gone to the site, was that they just shouldn't have had the rally there. It should not have been permitted. I thought there were just too many roofs. He picked one, but there was like a half dozen others that he could have picked on the other side of the field. And as Eli Crane, a congressman who was a sniper for the U.S. military, said, there was a water tower that actually would have been a better site, probably that Secret Service should have used, but could have been used as well. But the lead up to that decision, and Congressman Correa raised this, who made this decision about how to pick the site? And apparently there was back and forth between local law enforcement, Secret Service, and the campaign. And I was kind of curious as to whether that's something that your investigation is going into or not.
So I think that primarily falls within the scope of the 2 other reviews, that is the DHS Inspector General review and the outside panel, independent panel that's been announced. Certainly we are interviewing law enforcement personnel, but the security preparations, the adequacy of the security preparations.
That's the other lane?
That's the other lane.
All right, I only got 15 seconds left. Quick question for you with probably not a quick answer, but this scenario is kind of the worst case scenario from a couple of standpoints. Got a lone wolf shooter with no red flags that we've heard of so far. You know, nobody should have known that this was coming. He didn't have a criminal record and that sort of thing. Easy access to an assault weapon. I had a discussion like this with, I think, Congressman Roy and Congressman Bishop several months ago. What is it we can do to try and preempt those kinds of scenarios? We've got gun violence all over the country, including in my district. This is one example, but you know, this scenario is the worst possible that I can think of from the standpoint of no intervention prevention efforts that can be put in place to try and address it. But I'm kind of curious if you have any thoughts to the contrary on that.
I don't know that I have any magic solution to the problem, and I certainly don't want to be proposing, you know, legislative ideas. That's not really my role. Certainly, dangerous weapons, especially high-powered weapons, in the hands of the wrong person represent a real concern for law enforcement, including to law enforcement, sometimes as the victims, as we saw very tragically down near Miami with 2 of our agents killed. But that's probably all I can say on that. I do, while we're on the subject of firearms, Mr. Chairman, I have an answer to Congresswoman Dean's question. I might as well give it now, which is about the purchase of the firearm. I'm told that the father purchased the firearm in 2013, so quite a while ago, and then he sold it to his son in October of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back, and thank you, Mr. Director, for your great work.